Hey everyone, my name is Juan Paez. I'm originally from San Jose, Costa Rica. I was born there and was brought to Honolulu, Hawaii at the age of 4 months. And ever since then, I've lived my whole life here. I grew up here. I graduated from high school, college here, and there has been opportunities to leave and go to and move to other states, but I feel like God has called me to help the Hispanic community. I ended up here because my parents are missionaries and God has called them to help out the Hispanic community here. And yes, I do speak Spanish and it's my first language, and I do prefer to speak it many times because currently I have a 5-year-old nephew who lives with us, and we're trying to teach him Spanish and we want him to be bilingual. Who do I live with? Live with my parents, my sister, my wife, and my 5-year-old nephew, as I mentioned. We all live in a good sized apartment. Because of cost of living here, it's very expensive. So that's who I am here with. In fact, it's just us, and the rest of the family is actually back home in Costa Rica. I apologize, I'm dressed like this because I'm currently at work and it's one of the few times that I have an opportunity to do some class work because of the amount of work, work that I have to do. I work as an anesthesiologist assistant. Enjoy it every day. It's a great opportunity to be able to see physically the creation of God in us humans, right? So I enjoy it every day. In fact, the hospital also that I work at is across the street from Pearl Harbor, and I have to walk by this hall that has open windows towards to exactly where Pearl Harbor was bombarded. And if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, it's a great opportunity to come out here, and if you have the opportunity to come and check it out, it's really great. What are some of the things that brings joy to me these days? Honestly, I'd have to say my 5-year-old nephew. He's been a blessing to my life, to my whole family. And when I have a day off, it's all I want to do is just spend time with him and enjoy our time together. I don't get to see him as much because of my work. So what brings joy to me these days is being able to spend time with my nephew. Experience as a preacher, I really don't have any. And my only preaching experience is my homiletics class that I've taken. I did give a small sermon one time to like a very, very small congregation of like 20 people, which was traditionally we do in our services is on Easter is the Good Friday is the 7 words of Jesus Christ, the last 7 words of Jesus Christ, and they just gave me a word and requirement, which is 5 minutes, and that was it. I've done teaching for youth. I have taught youth classes, which is the most I've done. As a listener of sermons, I've been listening to sermons since I could recall. I've been through all type of sermons. One of them that has always been on me was this pastor who came and preached and took 5 hours to preach. That was pretty tough to get through. But yes. So that's my experience from preaching. So I'm trying to read here also the instructions. So how does God use it to build up the church? I think it's very important when it comes to preaching. For preachers, they need to really understand and grasp that they are vessels of Christ. They are instruments that God is using to bring a word to the people, a word of encouragement, a word of hope, a word that can change lives. So that's my perspective of what preaching, how God uses it to build the church. How does God use sermons also for Christmas, Easter, wedding, and funerals? I think they're just great opportunities, especially a lot of times people really only go to church during those occasions. So it's actually something that we have to, as preachers, learn that these are very critical opportunities, because like I said, sometimes people just go there to a church and listen to a sermon on those days. So I think it's an opportunity to also bring the good news to people that really, for instance, a wedding. Maybe some people only would step into a church during a wedding. So that's a great opportunity to bring good news to them. One particular area that I would like to grow in this quarter is the execution. That's very important for me. One of the things that I do fear and hesitate the most about preaching about these occasions is that, like I said, I've never really done any preaching, and especially having to read it. I grew up in a very Protestant church, evangelical. So the only thing that I ever saw reading was just the word and maybe a few notes here and there from the pastor who had his notes. But other than that, it's just really what comes from the heart. So having to write up a sermon and having to read it is going to be a challenge for me, but I know I'll press on through it. As prayer requests, I would just say that we could pray that we could just get through this class and that God can give us the wisdom and to be able to succeed. God bless you.